Please,
So,
please start.
Great, thanks. Good morning.
good morning, everyone. At least just let me introduce you. It's a pleasure for me to introduce Ellie who is my colleague in OpenAIRE. Ellie is a digital librarian and research associate at the Institute of Management Information System of Athena Research Center. Her academic background is in library science and information systems and in public policy and public management. Ellie is active in open science from 2013 and for the past 7 years support awareness, adoption, and implementation of policy and best practices for academic and research community service as an OpenAIRE representative in Greece. She's the Greece lab. By the way, I'm the Israeli lab. We are colleagues, as I said, and it's also an issue for services and technology standing committee in the OpenAIRE Executive Board. She enjoys collaboration with colleagues from OpenAIRE, Open and Fair Research Management through RPA, the groups that she co-shares managing across the services, co-sharing the OSA Fair Medics and Digital Object Task Force. And the floor is yours. But in a minute, I just like if you have a question, you can add it to the chat or raise your hand. And when we prefer questions during the presentation when we finish.
I really don't mind. Oh, what is this? Okay, the sound was not good for me either. I see Miley also commented the same. But do you hear me well? Do you hear me well?
I hear you well.
Yes. Okay, good then. Okay, then I can start.
I think the problem is in my computer, not yours.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Right. Thanks so much for the introduction and for the invitation, Simcha. I'm really happy to be here. I know I was supposed to be last week, but things I don't know got a bit mixed, let's say. So I'm not going to spend more time introducing. Let me quickly share my screen so that I start sharing with you the presentation. Okay. Now you can see full screen, right? Good. As Simcha mentioned before, so I'm highly involved in open science for more than 10 years. This is something that I really believe that we should have open access to scientific information, at least for researchers, because we don't need to forget that services that we use for open access and open science have, some cost in order to be developed and maintained. But with that being said, I will present to you with two hats on that I have in OpenAIRE. One is the Greek node. So equally as Simcha, I represent the Greek National Open Access Desk for OpenAIRE. And then I'm also managing the service of Argos, which is the OpenAIRE service, which is about creating data management plans. So my presentation is going to be a combination of those two. Now, we are talking about research data management. We see it lately as a term being used everywhere, in every policy document, in every best practices for research guidelines. So it is everywhere. But what's the hype? Is it something new? No, it's actually not new. So it's been there since 1960s. So it's been there since the previous century, actually, if you think about it, the 20th century. And that's because with the evolution of the industry and the technologies around science, so for example, astronomy, engineering, so the mass, let's say, production of digital data started to emerge, and there was a need to be able to organize them and handle them in a way that is accessible. You can easily find them, you can easily download them and use them or reuse them. So just that's to say that this is not something new, but this is something that now that we live in a more digitalized world, because I mean, actually what we do now is digital. This is a very urgent thing to start developing best practices and applying them. And why is that? Because as you see here, I like this, because if we don't plan ahead, we risk giving more money for services or people that are working in a research project, so spending more money. We risk spending more time finding things, finding files, data sets, whatever is important to quickly find and in order to progress our research. So a very important thing to do when talking about research data management is planning ahead. Now, this is in the right-hand side. I don't know if you see my cursor. You can see a simplified version of what the research data management life cycle is. It is about the processes that we are doing, we're following during research, from the creation of a research project, an idea, the hypothesis of our problems, to the documentation, to the analysis, to the storing, sharing, and preserving of this information. So the research data management life cycle is here to show the steps that complete it, and also the best practices. Now, DMPs have a dual role. So DMPs are in the first step of the research life cycle, here where it says create, because it is the first thing to do as you plan for the research, to plan also for how you will handle the data sets that you're going to produce. So DMPs are found here, but also DMPs in a meta level serve as descriptions of the whole life cycle. So their content is about all these steps that we see here, and how what services we used, who managed the data, yes, when did we open the results, deposited in a repository, and so on. Regarding the content, here you can see, okay, there is this framework that I really like because it's very simple and it's easy to remember. Use, make, share. This is also a framework that we worked at the NASA TOPS Open Science curriculum, so you can find it also there. But what what it is, it gives 3 core questions. What tools and resources will I use? This is for use. What outputs will I produce? This is for make. How am I going to share them? This is for share. And having these 3 questions, we go to the different stages of the research life cycle and try to answer them. So if we do that, we are sure that our content is going to be, well, if we answer them and elaborate on it and provide some justification on why we did what we did, then we are good in terms of the content of our DMP. So we should feel confident that it's a good DMP at the end. And you can see here some of these questions answered. For example, what tools and resources will I use during processing? Maybe there is an open software, an open source software that I can use to process my data, right? To clear my data, let's say. What outputs will I produce? During the cleaning, for example, I will produce the clean version of the data set that I will then use for analysis. How am I going to share them? These data during processing are going to be stored maybe only locally at the local data center, and so on. So if we see, I will share my presentation, by the way, I will share my slides later, so you can also have a look on your own time. These are the questions that we can answer. Now, besides that, well, in addition to that, we also have to answer if our data sets are fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and usable, and if it's open access. And what's the difference? So findable, accessible, interoperable, reusable, these are some principles, and here you can see some actions that you can do to fulfill them. For example, in order for your data set to be findable, you should provide a PID, a persistent identifier. For example, this can be an ORCID, a personal identifier that I can find my data set from my personal ORCID, from my personal account that links all my identifiers. I can also have a DOI, digital object identifier, for the dataset. So I can find the dataset from searching a registry or the repository where this dataset is with the DOI. I can have rich metadata, which means not only not only the minimum metadata, but metadata that include also links with other resources. So if I find the data set, I can also find PIDs and metadata. For example, if I find the data set, I can also find my name and my ORCID. Okay, so I can find different things from the dataset metadata. And indexed repositories, I think I already mentioned. So these are the principles and how you can, what you can do to apply them. But FAIR is not open. The majority of the scientific community still, confuses this, and that's why we stress this. Open is something that, so FAIR data mainly are the data that can be interpreted by machines. So we give to the data sets good metadata so that they can be understood and used by machines. Okay, maybe in algorithms, maybe in the digital, let's say, in digital workflows. Open data have more attributes on how to have access to the data. You see, access is also here, okay, but access here is something different. It's how to access when you find them, if you find them with an API, for example, and if it's going to be free. So if it needs an authentication to access, or if I need to log in to access them. So it's something very technical here. Whereas here, the open side of accessibility is IPR, intellectual property right issues, are licenses, open licenses issues, because here, for reusability, we need a license, but it doesn't have to be open, so it can be closed. I can have fair data in my own laboratory that is, you know, and I never open them, and it's okay. It's okay if for the definition of the fair, it's not okay for the definition of the open access to the data sets. Okay, so these are two different things that we combine when we're talking about open science. How to start your DMPs and documenting all these practices and the processes and answering all these questions that we saw, the use, make, share framework. There are templates that are that have been developed by institutions, funders, educators, trainers. These templates are offered in a structured way. They usually come with guidance, instructions on how to fill in input and how to answer the questions. And here is how they might look like. This is the Science Europe example, where you see there are 6 sections, thematic sections, and each section has some questions that we need to answer. For example, data description and collection or reuse of existing data. How will new data be collected or produced, and or how will existing data will be reused? Because it's not only about collecting or producing, it's also about reusing. What formats are this data coming from? And so on. At the end, what is a good DMP? It's like a Rubik's Cube that we are handed over, and then we need to, you know, find the correct colors. It might be different for everyone, so we might be handed a different Rubik's Cube, but at the end, we, having the knowledge of our scientific domain, can, and the support of the libraries and the data stewards, we can answer these questions, and at the end, we can solve, let's say, the Rubik Cube together. You can find templates in different DMP platforms. There are platforms that you can use, like Argos, that I will share more things in a minute. Here, you can see one of the most, let's say, actually, the first one, the first DMP platform. And we see an evolution to these DMP platforms. They started as simple forms like SurveyMonkey, Google Form, these kinds of forms. And they're now moving towards becoming also DMP repositories. So having the information of the DMPs and more integrated systems. So systems that can connect to other systems and interact and exchange information with one another. And the latter is Argos, so I'm going to show you how this looks like. So Argos, first of all, is an open source. It's based on the open source software OpenCDMP, and I can share the link if you want to check the GitHub repository that we have. And Argos is the service of OpenAIRE. So it's provided by OpenAIRE. It's linked to the OpenAIRE services. It uses them, the OpenAIRE services. And this is how it looks like if you see in the picture. This is the plan at the end here with the DOI, with the PID, with the license, and all the core information, and then how it exchanges information with other services of OpenAIRE, like the Explore, to retrieve metadata and facilitate the writing by pre-filling this information. So if I have, for example, my data set on Zenodo, I can quickly search it on the box, on the search bar, and add the basic metadata immediately on my DMP. I can also validate this information against the FAIR principle, so I can see how this is coming. We have the mechanism, but it's coming in the next semester. While you're doing your while you're writing your DMP, to know how fair this information that you provide is. But overall, it's a tool that can support both a DMP template so that you fill it in, and an integrated system so that you plug in with other services. And all that to, at the end, support the resource data management. Now, key concepts to know for when using Argos, it's the template, which we already discussed before. And the template has the questions and the guidance about the different inputs that we want to provide in the DMP, for example, about the datasets, about the software, about the policies, and so on. And the blueprint. The blueprint is, let's say, overarching. So a blueprint can have many templates because the blueprint is the structure of how the plan will look like at the end. And the blueprint, for example, can have more information about all the different resource data management processes, but then at the end, the template, but then we can export exactly the template that we want. And the plan at the end is the output of what we have added in the blueprint and the templates. Now, oops, let me see. Key features is a dashboard and profile management. So you can, there's your own dashboard to log in and find your DMPs. And also there's a profile settings that you can use to specify where you want the notifications to come for different actions. For example, if I collaborate with Simcha, then I can specify that I want a notification, I want to receive a notification by email when Simcha, for example, finalizes the plan or changes something in the plan. Or I can also specify that I want it to be in the app, so I can receive it not via email, but in the app when I log in. I can check all the notifications there. Another thing is, and you can link, of course, your accounts in Argos, and that's very helpful because it keeps your activity, regardless of which email account you use, keeps all your activity together. Otherwise, you need to log into one and then to the other and find which DMP is where. Now, blueprint and template selection. So you can see here the first, let's say, the first step of how to create a DMP. You have to specify the blueprint that you want. And you can choose from Horizon Europe, institutional or funder specific. There are some that have been created by our collaborators, and also customize the different sections with the templates that you find according to what best fits your needs. And, oops.
So Ellie, what you
Yes.
say is I need to give a DMP to the European Commission so I can use a template which is fit
The Horizon
the
Europe.
requirement of the European Commission.
Yes. So the blueprints, sorry?
And usually when you do it, the DMP with Argos, is it shared somewhere? Can I control whether it's shared openly or not?
Yes, yes, you can. You can specify if it's private or open access. Yeah.
Can I share it with certain people?
Yes, yes. And specific parts only with certain people. For example, the ethics section only to the ethics committee, or it's up to you what to share to whom. And then you can edit the form-based DMP by filling in the sections and answering the questions. Now, collaboration tools. This is the invite that you can use to give access to different people for different sections, and also with different rights. So maybe I want Simcha to be a reviewer to a specific part of the DMP. Then I will check that when I send the invitation, I will check that she has the role reviewer, and it's added to a specific section or to all. And this limits the editing. So it only allows for comments to be given to the plan. And this is how it looks like, only comments. We also provide, this is the pre-filling that I mentioned before. We also provide a search bar where you can search, for example, a data set that you have on Zenodo, and quickly pre-fill this information in your DMP. And you can also have a version control. So all your plans can be versioned, and the version is not something separate. It keeps track of the provenance, let's say, of the other of the initial DMP with the rest of them, with how it was updated. And also you can update if there's an updated version of the blueprint or the template from the administrators that are providing this information, then you can also you will receive a pop-up that asks you if you want to switch to this new version of the template and blueprint, or keep the one that you were working. Sharing and publishing. Argos is connected to Zenodo because Zenodo is the open access repository of OpenAIRE. So you can see that with a click, you can immediately find the DMP on Zenodo as a metadata record, and with the attachment of the PDF and the JSON, which is the machine actionable version of our DMP, which is very useful for exploiting the DMPs further. Export, we currently support PDF, editable document, text, RDA, JSON, and XML. Yeah, and you can see here that when you click Zenodo, then immediately you have the PID for the DMP. And if you click one of these, this one, it will open the whole record will open on Zenodo. This is coming this week. So if not tomorrow, then maybe Wednesday. Evaluation. So as I mentioned, we have a mechanism that we applied where you can use to evaluate your DMPs. For example, how fair they are, how fair this information that you have provided is. Maybe according to the DMP requirements of the funder or the institution. And we're working, we have a pilot that we are currently working on for Horizon Europe. So at the end, we will possibly have also this DMP requirements met for Horizon Europe. And also status, so that you change the status from preview to finalize to edit to all that. So that you quickly can understand what status the current DMP that you're viewing is at. In summary, what you can do, and here you can see different, let's say, use cases, Poland, Greece, Portugal, these are different use cases of Argos. Well, actually of institutions that are using OpenCDMP and Argos. Describe the data sets you have, the software, your workflows, and outputs. Use automated templates to start your DMP. Collaborate with colleagues to write the DMP. Get guided to research data management. Follow FAIR principles. Assign license and DOI to the DMP so that we treat it also as a research output, because it's very useful for reproducibility amongst all, and publish your DMP. We have community calls if you want to learn more, and you can join us every last Wednesday of the month at 2 Central, so 3 our time, now that I know that we share the same time zone, where we gather together and we might discuss new features as they come, but also use cases from other people using Argos, so that we see how different organizations across Europe are using it. And what the future holds, we are currently working on the OS Trails project, and I'm actually I'm very lucky to be coordinating this as a deputy for OpenAIRE, deputy coordinator. And OS Trails is about connecting the different stages of the life cycle. So connecting services for planning, tracking, and assessing research. Connecting the DMPs, the DMP platforms, to the repositories and the scientific knowledge graphs that have the information that they gather and aggregate from all different sources, and connecting the assessment part, the FAIR assessment or the DMP assessment. So all of them to be able to interact with each other, quickly exchange information with each other, and provide the links with each other. So the links for the DMP to have the link to the FAIR assessment result, to specific information that is found in the repository of the author, the publication that is about the data set, and so on. Now, having said that, let's see what we did in Greece in the past years, so that we, at the end, have a policy or actually a plan for open science at national level. The node, I said before that I also have this hat. I serve as at the National Open Access Desk for Greece, together with HearLink. HearLink is also a member in Greece. And HearLink is the Greek Academic Libraries Consortium. So we started in 2018. We started with this that I'm going to share now, understanding what are the gaps, understanding how we can, what are the potential actions that we can take to fill in these gaps, and at the end have some achievements to celebrate. And we worked on 3 core pillars, which are actually the pillars that OpenAIRE works on. So policies, training, and services. So you will see that later. For policies, we evaluated, we checked how at national level, what are the policies, the legal framework, and we saw that we were good in terms of open data, e-government, the Data Act, copyright. These are all enforced. So we are aligned at the European level because these are directives. So the difficult directives and regulations should be immediately transposed to the national legal framework. Whereas recommendations, like the Open Science recommendations, is more, let's say, it's more flexible to implement at the national level or institutional level, but also it's not mandatory. So institutional level, only few academic libraries we found had an open access policy, not even open science, open access to publications. So we wanted to have at the end national policy and institutional policies. Now, for the data and infrastructures, at national level, we have the Hellenic Data Services, which is a service for depositing datasets, finding datasets and using them with Jupyter notebooks, so analyzing them. It has, and also publishing them further. At the institutional level, we have literature repositories, of course. HeaLink is very, very active, has a repository network that they maintain. We have some data repositories from research infrastructures and some other services that are used during research. So we wanted to make sure that they are compliant to OpenAIRE, so they are interoperable, and they are represented in the ESC, in the European Open Science Cloud, which I'm sure you've heard of by now. And now for training, at national level, we had nothing. We still have nothing, but I'll tell you more. And at the institutional level, we had some for researchers, for research communities and libraries, very sparse, very, things that are happening in silos. So we needed training at all levels. How we implemented this, we did the landscape review for the national laws and regulations. We held meetings with the national funder. We collaborated further with the institutions, the universities that HeaLink has in its members, and had a landscape review to understand what they have at the moment, how mature they are. And there was also a letter to the Rector's Council that was sent and approved. For the data and the, why? Oh, okay. For the data and the infrastructures, at the national level, there were awareness raising activities to spread the word that we have Helix. We can use it for depositing data, but also for processing and analyzing this data with Jupyter notebooks, and collaborate with other initiatives and organizations such as the RDA node. At the institutional level, again, we had a landscape review on the literature repository's technical capabilities so that we see if they how far they are from becoming OpenAIRE compliant and increasing their visibility through OpenAIRE Graph. We had a mini landscape review on fair compliance of these repositories and services integrated to different catalogs, including the US catalog. Training, national level was, we have communicated this need to the ministry. But at the institutional level, we held webinars. We have, every year we run some joint webinars, the Greek and the Cypriot nodes together because we share the same language. So it's easy to collaborate on that and inform our communities. Transfer knowledge in libraries and collaborate with research communities, so research infrastructures in specific scientific domains. And this is our achievements. You can see this is the timeline. We started in 2018. The first Open Science Symposium organized as the Greek national, the Greek OpenAIRE national event, welcomed more than 200 participants in Athens. And there was, there we understood that the need is common. So we all see that open science is the norm for us, but it's not followed. And if we want to be competitive at the European level, also the European research area, we should do something to implement it, specifically because we realized that we have the expertise. So when all the organization came together, at the end, we agreed that we need to collaborate and to have a national policy, that our proposal for national policy that we can then hand over to the ministry. To do that, we set up the bottom-up National Open Science Task Force, this with many organizations, research performing organizations, but also initiatives for open source software, for example, for citizen science. So we try to cover all elements. And together we worked a year and we published our first version of the National Open Science Plan, where you can see different actions that we, different policies and actions that we propose for open access publications, for open and fair data management, for open and fair research software, and so on. Parts of this proposal were later transposed to the National Digital Strategy of the Ministry of Digital Governance. However, these parts were only for the infrastructures and how they can be enhanced and enriched to get open science results. And in February 2022, this bottom-up initiative was established with a memorandum of understanding that was signed across the the presidency of every organization. We established it in a more formal way, and we now call this group of people Hellenic Open Science Initiative. And we worked together to establish the new version of the National Open Science Plan. This is the wrong this is the wrong date, but last month we published the next version of our Open Science Plan. And in December, we held the third Open Science Symposium and EOSC National tripartite event, where this was even more welcomed by the community. More than 400 participants were there. And it was a good discussion and agreement amongst the different ministries on how to move things forward, because Greece is in this unique, let's say, situation that open science responsibilities are shared across 3 different ministries. And I think that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ellie. I hope you can hear me now.
Yes.
I'm sorry if my computer is causing problems in this area. There is one question in the chat by Shmuel. How DMP can support improvement level and quality of education? Yes, and how DMP can improve accessibility research data to poor and low socioeconomic groups of population?
Thank you. That's a nice question. Let's see. How DMPs can support improvement level and quality of education. DMPs if we're talking about the DMP that is also onboarded to a platform like Argos, then we're talking about information literacy. So enhancing information literacy, and this can be a course for example, or a training provided in universities. This is what we are now starting to do in Greece on how you can write a DMP. But to write a DMP, you need first to know all the different risk data management steps and best practices. So yes, it can be seen as a tool for educating people for research data management, good research data management practices. And how DMP can improve accessibility research data to poor and low socioeconomic groups population. The DMP, I can hear myself. The DMP, unfortunately, describes information about datasets, but does not handle the datasets themselves. So only the dataset owner or the person or the organization with the rights to the dataset can decide if they want it to be openly available. Now, however, for accessibility, you can, I don't know if you're using already, but you can go to explore.openair.eu and find millions of data sets interconnected with publications, with projects, so you can find it useful. Let me add this here. So for accessibility, if you are a repository manager, for example, if you have a repository and you connect to OpenAIRE, then it's easy to access, even if it's not the dataset itself, the metadata of the dataset. Does that help? Does it answer the question?
Well, as you said, DMP is quite a technical process that the researcher should do. So his data will be available and reused. It will be easy to reuse it, and reuse open data helps everyone, including, to my opinion. Does anyone from the audience have another question? So you can raise your hand. If not, I have a question. I saw your plan for the 5 years, and it talks about what you should do. How do the researchers in Greece implement it? Are they willing to share their data, or it's compulsory? What is the degree of sharing data in Greece, for example, or implementing any other requirement of open science?
Yeah. Well, at the moment, we have requirements. Funders have requirements for open access to publications, not for the data, because we should be more ready at the infrastructure level. So everything is connected: policies, infrastructures, and training again. So at the Hellenic Open Science Initiative that I mentioned, we are all working together in 3 working groups: training, policies, and software. Because there, all the needs that from what we should have at the national and institutional level arise, and then we can act upon them. So we start, checking within our institutions, okay, what do we have? So we should organize ourselves. Do we have a service to store the data? Do we have, is it secure? Is it provide secure storage? Do we have a repository to store the outputs of the intellectual property of the researchers of the organization? So we have this HOSE, this Hellenic Open Science Initiative, as the mediator, let's say, and this structure that gathers the needs from researchers, from the institutions and the different scientific domains, and they are brought to us so we can develop better infrastructures and provide better training. Does that answer?
Yes, but does researcher really
okay, yes. So researchers, they have to for Horizon Europe and European projects. So that's
they don't have any choice.
Exactly. And also if they are part of an infrastructure, a research infrastructure, for example, the Clarin, which is about language resources, then they have archives where they archive their data sets there. And these are then shared to OpenAIRE or to other means. So it varies, and it usually is dependent with the European, let's say, mandates.
So it's the European mandate. So who is the researcher who share, or the researcher who has to do it? And in the Greece level, there is no bonuses for sharing data or
at the moment,
and sharing the publication.
Yes, it's as in Horizon Europe. So the proposal should include, should take into consideration the cost of publishing open access, if we're talking about gold open access, and at the end, the publications by the end of the project should be all open access.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because Healing is actually paying, it has a budget from the national fund to pay scientific publishers for agreements to minimize the cost or even waive the cost of publishing to open access. So
you're doing it by transformative agreement?
Sorry?
You're doing it by transformative agreements?
Well, I cannot answer this because I'm not the Healing representative. So maybe my answer is not correct. But they have agreements with publishers. I don't know if they're transformative or not, but they are very... So we are more mature on the open access publications because of Healing and because of infrastructure and all that. So now we're moving on to data sets.
Mm-hmm. Well, your plan was very interesting, and I think we had discussion during the week, and I think that it was agreed that we should collaborate and plan.
Yes.
And it was very nice to see the way Greece handled the subject. So it was really a very interesting lecture for us. And thank you. If Is there any other questions? Okay, so if not, I want to thank you again for a very enlightening meeting. And well, see you all next year. Thank you, Ellie.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Sandra.